I want you to just stop and think for a second about how many promises you've made recently.
Right.
And I mean, I don't just mean big, life-altering promises. Did you click, I agree to download a software update on your phone this morning?
Probably.
Yeah. Or did you grab a cup of coffee on the way to work? Or maybe you, I don't know, walked past a poster on a telephone pole offering a reward for a lost dog.
Which is a classic example.
Exactly. We don't really think about it, but you've probably entered into multiple legally binding agreements before noon. Every single day, we're basically navigating this invisible web of rules.
It really is an invisible architecture. I mean, we move through the world making these daily agreements completely unaware of the massive centuries-old legal machinery that is, quietly holding all of it together.
Yeah.
Without it, modern commerce and, well, really modern society would just completely fall apart.
Which is terrifying and fascinating. So for today's deep dive, we are decoding that invisible machinery. We're getting into the surprisingly wild world of contract law.
It is surprisingly wild.
It is. And look, I know legal text can be incredibly dense. So our mission today is to break everything down using only simple English. We're going to avoid the heavy jargon. And I'm going to make sure to recap often so you never get lost.
I think that's a great approach.
So let's start at the very beginning. If we are constantly making these deals, what actually makes them stick? Like, what takes a passing comment and turns it into a binding contract?
Well, when you strip away the complicated terminology, the underlying logic is incredibly intuitive. A binding contract really just needs 4 basic ingredients to exist.
Okay, 4 ingredients. What's the first one?
First, you need an offer. Second, an acceptance of that offer. Third, something of value has to be exchanged.
Right.
The formal legal term for that is consideration, but it just means value. And finally, there can't be any valid legal excuses to cancel the whole thing.
Okay, so offer, acceptance, an exchange of value, and no valid excuses.
You got it.
All right, let's unpack this. Because before we even get to the offer, the rules of the game have to change depending on what we're actually trading, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I imagine, the law treats buying a mass-produced car very differently than, say, hiring someone to paint a custom mural in your house.
Precisely. You really have to know what kind of deal you're making,
Yeah.
and which legal rule book applies to it. But before we get to the rule books, we have to look at the 2 underlying types of deals,
Okay.
bilateral and unilateral.
Bilateral and unilateral.
Right. So a bilateral contract is simply a promise swapped for a promise.
Okay.
Like, I promise to sell you my car for $1,000,
Yeah.
and you promise to pay me $1,000.
Right.
The moment we exchange those mutual promises, we have an enforceable deal.
So the promises themselves are enough. Like, I don't even have to hand you the catch yet, and we're locked in.
Exactly. The promises are the consideration.
Yeah.
But unilateral is different. A unilateral contract is a promise swap for an action. Yeah. One party makes a promise, but the other party doesn't accept by making a promise back. They can only accept by actually doing the thing requested.
Wait, let me test this with that lost dog reward poster from earlier.
Sure.
If I put up a flyer saying, I promise to pay $500 to whoever finds my lost dog, and you walk up to me and promise to look for the dog, that's not enough to lock in the contract.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Your promise to search means absolutely nothing legally in that scenario.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the only way you accept a unilateral offer is by completing the requested action. Finding the dog is the acceptance.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Okay, recapping quickly for you listening, deals are either promises for promises, which is bilateral, or promises for actions, which is unilateral. Simple enough. Now, what about those rule books you mentioned?
Right, so there are 2 main rule books in contract law, and they exist for very different reasons. First, you have the common law.
The common law.
Yeah. This is the ancient, evolutionary law built up over centuries by judges. The common law strictly governs contracts involving services or real estate.
Okay, services and land.
Exactly. The second rule book is called the Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC.
UCC, got it.
Specifically, Article 2 of the UCC, which governs the sale of physical goods.
So physical goods like,
Things you can touch and move, like laptops, lumber, groceries, that sort of thing.
why do we need a totally separate rule book just for physical goods, though?
Well, because the common law is slow and incredibly formal. I mean, it was designed for complex things like transferring land deeds.
Right, which takes forever.
Exactly. But in the 20th century, businesses realized that if they had to use those slow, formal common law rules every time they bought a shipment of steel or sold a toaster, commerce would just grind to a halt.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the UCC was drafted to be much more flexible, to keep the modern economy moving quickly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. What happens if a deal is a mix of both?
Ah, the hybrid deal.
Yeah. Let's say I hire someone for a job that involves both a physical good and a service.
That is a classic dilemma in contract law. To solve it, the law uses something called the predominant purpose test.
Predominant purpose.
Right. We look at the contract and ask, what is the main point of this deal? For example, imagine a guy named Bob hires a famous chef, let's say Emerald, to cater a massive party.
Okay, I love a food example.
Right. So Emerald's going to buy all the ingredients, which are physical goods, and then he will cook the food, which is a service.
Right, so it's a total hybrid. Does the UCC apply to the groceries and the common law apply to the cooking?
No, the law really doesn't like to split contracts down the middle. We have to choose one rule book.
Oh, so it's winner takes all.
Exactly. So we ask, why did Bob hire Emerald? He didn't hire him just to acquire raw groceries.
Yeah, he could have just gone to the supermarket for that.
Precisely. The most important aspect of the contract, the predominant purpose, is Emerald's expert service of cooking the food. Because the service is the main point, the common law rulebook governs the entire contract.
Okay, let me just lock this in my head. Simple English recap time. Bilateral deals are promises for promises. Unilateral deals are promises for actions.
Yes.
And they are judged by the common law for services and land, or the faster UCC rulebook for physical goods. And if it's a mix, you just look at whatever the main point of the deal is.
You nailed it. But before we get to how an offer actually works, we should quickly clarify what happens when these deals go wrong.
Right.
Because the law has 3 specific ways of labeling a broken or problematic contract: void, voidable, and unenforceable.
I mean, those all sound like synonyms. What's the practical difference?
They do sound similar, but legally they're very distinct. A void contract is a total nullity. It is completely erased from existence.
Like it never happened.
Exactly. For instance, if you sign a contract to hire a hitman, that deal is void because the subject matter is illegal. It never existed in the eyes of the law.
Okay, no hitman. Got it. What about voidable?
A voidable contract operates as a perfectly valid agreement, but one of the parties has the power to step in and cancel it if they choose to.
Oh, so they have an out.
Right. This usually happens if someone was lied to. The victim gets to decide, do I tear this up or do I still want the deal?
And the last one, unenforceable.
An unenforceable contract is a valid legal deal, but a technicality prevents a judge from helping you.
Like what kind of technicality?
Well, for example, if you wait 10 years to sue someone for breaking a contract, the statute of limitations might have expired. The contract was real, but the court simply won't step in to enforce it anymore.
Okay, so void is dead on arrival, voidable is you can cancel it, and unenforceable is valid, but the courts won't help you.
Exactly.
Okay, so with the foundation laid, let's look at the starting line. Kicking off a contract obviously begins with an offer. But what actually counts as a legal offer? If I tell you, I don't know, I like your watch and I want to buy it, did I just trigger a legal process?
To determine if something is a valid offer, the law uses an objective test.
Okay.
An offer has to show a clear, present intent to be legally bound right then and there. The question isn't what you secretly meant in your head.
It's what it looks like from the outside.
Yes. The test is, would a reasonable person receiving your words believe that they could close the deal immediately just by saying, I accept?
So if I walk up to my neighbor, Carol, and say, I might be interested in buying your house for $300,000, is that an offer?
No, it completely fails the objective test.
Why?
The phrase, I might, does not express a present intent to be bound. A reasonable person wouldn't think they could just shout, I accept, and suddenly transfer the deed to the house. You were just opening negotiations.
What about an advertisement? If I see a commercial on TV saying a car is on sale for $20,000, is the TV making me an offer?
Generally, no. Regular advertisements are considered invitations to bargain.
Invitations to bargain.
Yeah. They are basically asking the public to come into the store and make an offer to the business.
Oh, wow.
The law does this to protect stores. I mean, think about it. If an ad was a binding offer and 1 million people showed up to buy a TV, the store would be legally sued by hundreds of thousands of people when they ran out of stock.
That would be a nightmare.
Total nightmare. The only exception is if an ad is incredibly specific, stating exactly who can accept and leaving absolutely nothing open for negotiation.
Okay, so let's say a real definitive offer is made. You look me in the eye and say, I offer to sell you my car for $1,000. Offers don't just live forever, right? They have to expire eventually.
Yes, the legal term for that is termination. And offers can die in a few ways.
Like what?
Well, if the offer has a set time limit, it dies when the clock runs out. If there's no time limit stated, it terminates after a reasonable amount of time passes.
And what's reasonable?
It completely depends on the context. An offer to sell fresh strawberries will terminate much faster than an offer to sell a tractor.
Oh, sure, because strawberries rot.
Exactly.
Mm.
An offer also terminates immediately if either person dies or loses mental capacity, or if the subject matter, like the car, is destroyed in a fire before the deal is accepted.
Okay, but what if I make that offer, but 5 minutes later I realize $1,000 is way too low and I panic? Can I just change my mind?
That's called revocation. And in general, yes. The person who made the offer is the master of it. You can revoke it or take it back at any time before it has been accepted.
Oh, phew.
You just have to clearly communicate that you're pulling it off the table.
But wait, is there any way I can force someone to keep an offer open? Let's say I'm the buyer. I need a few days to get the money together, and I want to guarantee they won't revoke it.
Yes, there are 4 major exceptions where an offer absolutely cannot be taken back.
Okay, lay them on me.
The first is straightforward. It's an option contract. This is where you actually pay the person to keep the offer open.
Okay.
You give them separate consideration, like paying them $50, just to hold the car offer open for a week.
That makes sense. I essentially bought the time. What's the second?
A second exception is the UCC firm offer rule. Remember how the UCC is designed to help commerce?
Right, for physical goods.
Exactly. If a merchant, so a professional business person, makes a written, signed promise to keep an offer for physical goods open, they cannot take it back, even if you didn't pay them to hold it.
Wait, really? Just because it's in writing?
Just because it's in writing,
Yeah.
and they're a merchant. It can stay open for up to 90 days. Businesses need to be able to rely on written quotes to plan their budgets.
Wow, so just putting it in writing fundamentally changes the power dynamic if you're a merchant selling goods. What's the third one?
The third exception goes back to our unilateral contract, the lost dog.
Okay.
If the offer is for a unilateral contract, you cannot revoke the offer once the person has begun performing the requested act.
Because that would be incredibly unfair. I mean, I could sit on my porch, watch you search the neighborhood for my dog for 3 days, and right when you reach out to grab the collar, I yell, "Offer revoked!"
Exactly. The law stepped in to prevent that exact absurdity. Once they start the actual performance, you had to give them a reasonable time to finish.
Okay, fair enough. And the fourth exception?
The final exception is a safety net called promissory estoppel.
Promissory estoppel, that's a mouthful.
It is, but it's built entirely around fairness. If someone foreseeably relies on your promise to their own massive disadvantage, the law makes your offer irrevocable to prevent a tragedy.
Give me a real-world scenario for that one.
Imagine a wealthy uncle promises to give you $50,000 so you can buy a house.
That sounds like a great uncle.
Right. So you rely on that promise, you go to the bank, and you sign a legally binding mortgage. The day before closing, the uncle says, I changed my mind. Offer revoked.
Oh, that's awful.
Because you reasonably relied on his promise and changed your life position to your detriment, a court will step in and use promissory estoppel to hold him to it.
Okay, let's do a quick, simple English recap of all of that.
Go for it.
So, an offer has to be a clear, definitive statement, not just a passing thought or a TV commercial. And whoever makes the offer holds all the cards. They can usually take it back any time before it's accepted. Unless the other side paid to keep it open, a merchant put it in writing, someone already started doing the work for a unilateral deal, or someone already started changing their life based on the promise.
You've got it perfectly. Which brings us to the next critical phase, locking it in. We have a live offer on the table. It hasn't died. It hasn't been revoked. How do we successfully accept it?
Well, earlier you said the common law and the UCC have totally different vibes. I assume they handle acceptance differently, too.
Oh, they are night and day. Under the common law, which again is for services and land, we use the mirror image rule.
A mirror image rule.
Right. For an acceptance to be valid, it must perfectly match the terms of the offer. Mirror it exactly.
You're right.
If I offer to paint your house for $1,000 and you say, I accept, but you have to use premium paint, you did not accept.
Even though I said I accept.
Right. By changing one detail, you legally rejected my original offer, and you just created a brand new counteroffer.
So under common law, it's like a perfectly synced dance. You step on a toe by changing a single term, and the music immediately stops. The whole deal has to start over.
That's a fantastic analogy. But under the UCC rule for physical goods, that strict dance would ruin supply chains. The UCC uses a system sometimes called the Battle of the Forms.
Battle of the Forms. Sounds dramatic.
It can be. Under the UCC, adding extra terms or different terms doesn't automatically kill the deal. If both sides are merchants, those new terms might actually just quietly become part of the contract automatically.
Oh, interesting.
Or if your invoice and my purchase order have terms that directly contradict each other, courts often use a knockout rule. The conflicting terms cancel each other out, and the judge just fills in the blanks using standard default UCC rules to keep the deal alive.
It's basically a salvage operation to keep commerce flowing.
Exactly.
Okay, but I have a mechanical question about acceptance. Let's say I live in New York, you live in California.
Yeah.
I want to accept your offer, so I write a letter saying, yes, I accept, and I drop it in the mail. When is the deal actually locked in? Is it when I put it in the mailbox or like 3 days later when you actually open it?
This is one of the most famous quirks of contract law, known as the mailbox rule.
The mailbox rule.
An acceptance is legally valid the exact moment it is properly put in the mail. It's effective upon dispatch. But a rejection is only valid when it is actually received.
Wait, why? That feels completely lopsided.
It is lopsided, but think about the historical context.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 1800s, communication took weeks.
Oh, right.
If an acceptance wasn't valid until it arrived, the person accepting the offer would be in a state of terrified limbo, wondering if their letter made it across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
The law decided to shift the risk of lost mail onto the offerer, the person who chose to start the transaction in the first place.
Okay, let me test the absolute limits of this.
Let's hear it.
What if I mail an acceptance on Monday, but then I wake up on Tuesday in a cold sweat, realizing I can't afford the deal? I mail a rejection letter on Tuesday.
Okay, erase in the mail.
Right. And somehow, by a miracle of the Postal Service, my rejection letter arrives on Wednesday, but my acceptance letter doesn't arrive until Thursday. Which one wins?
It is a brilliant hypothetical, and the law has a specific answer for it.
Oh, it does.
Yes. Your acceptance still wins.
Even though it arrives second.
Yes. Because it became valid the moment you dispatched it on Monday. The contract was formed on Monday. Your later rejection doesn't magically undo a contract that already exists.
Wow.
However,
Yeah.
there is a catch based on fairness. If the offerer received your rejection first and they detrimentally acted on it, say they immediately sold the goods to someone else because they genuinely thought you rejected, then you are legally barred from enforcing your acceptance.
Man, the mailbox rule is wild. What if I just stay quiet, though?
What do you mean?
If someone texts me, I'll sell you my bike for $50, and if I don't hear from you by Friday, we have a deal. Can they force me into a contract through my own silence?
Usually no. The law heavily protects individuals from having contracts forced upon them against their will. Silence is generally not considered acceptance.
Okay, good.
The major exception is if you have a history of previous dealings with that person.
Like a routine.
Exactly. If you're a restaurant owner and you have a standing arrangement with a farmer where he drops off potatoes every Tuesday, unless you tell not to, then your silence operates as acceptance. But without that history, someone can't just mandate that your silence equals a yes.
Okay, so to weave this together and recap.
We do.
Common law requires your acceptance to match the offer perfectly. The UCC for physical goods is way more forgiving, knocking out conflicting terms to save the deal. And the moment you drop an acceptance in the mail, you are legally bound, even if the other person is completely unaware of it.
Exactly right.
Okay, we are moving into the final phase here. We've made the offer, and we've accepted it. We have a contract.
We do.
But what if something goes terribly fundamentally wrong? Are there escape hatches?
There are escape hatches, but they are narrow. The law calls these defenses to formation.
Defenses to formation.
The first big one is a mistake. But we have to be clear here, a mistake in contract law isn't just making a bad bet, like buying a stock that immediately crashes.
So no buyer's remorse.
Exactly. A legal mistake is a profound misunderstanding of a basic fact that existed at the exact time the deal was made.
Give me a real-world scenario of a profound misunderstanding.
Consider this incredibly famous historical case from 1887, Sherwood v. Walker.
Okay.
Two farmers negotiated the sale of a cow. They agreed on a relatively low price because both of them truly believed the cow was completely barren, like unable to have calves.
Okay, so a meat cow.
Right.
Right.
But right before the cow was handed over, they realized she was actually pregnant.
Oh, wow. So the whole fundamental reality of what they were trading was wrong. A pregnant cow was worth way more, I'd imagine.
Exponentially more. The court actually canceled the deal. They called it a mutual mistake. Because both parties were mistaken about an essential element of the contract, and it substantially changed the entire value of the deal, the law allowed them to tear it up.
But wait, what if only one person is wrong? What if the seller secretly knew the cow was pregnant, but the buyer was just clueless?
That's called a unilateral mistake, and it is incredibly hard to use as an escape hatch.
Why?
The law prioritizes stability. If you just made a foolish error, you're usually stuck with the contract. The only way out of a unilateral mistake is if you can prove the other person absolutely knew you were making a mistake and, like, predatorily took advantage of you.
Oh, that makes sense.
Or if enforcing the deal would be so horribly unfair that it shocks the conscience.
Okay, so you can't just claim ignorance to get out of a bad deal. But what about outright lying? What if someone tricks me?
The law handles that under misrepresentation and fraud, and it breaks fraud into two distinct categories based on the mechanics of the lying.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is fraud in the factum. This is when you are deceived about the very nature of the document you are signing.
Give me an example.
Imagine a celebrity is signing a stack of autographs, and someone slips a contract to sell their house into the pile.
Oh, sneaky.
Very. Because the celebrity didn't even know the essential character of the document, the deal is totally void. It never legally existed.
And the second type?
Fraud in the inducement. You know exactly what document you were signing, but you were lied to in order to get you to agree.
Like someone selling me a car and showing me fake records saying the engine is brand new when it's actually failing.
Exactly. In that case, the contract is voidable. You, the victim, get to decide whether to cancel it entirely or keep the car and sue for the difference in value.
What about keeping secrets? If I'm selling my house and I know the basement floods every spring, but I don't know, don't say a word, is staying quiet the same as fraud?
Generally, non-disclosure, just keeping your mouth shut, is not considered fraud. It's buyer beware. You aren't legally required to point out every single flaw.
Oh, really?
Yes, but the mechanism changes in a few specific cases. For example, if you have a special fiduciary relationship with the person, like you are their lawyer, their doctor, or their financial advisor, you have an absolute legal duty to disclose known facts. You cannot use silence to benefit yourself at your client's expense.
Okay. What about physical extremes, though? What if someone literally forces me to sign a piece of paper?
That brings us to our final escape hatches: undue influence and duress.
Undue influence.
Undue influence focuses on psychological pressure. It's when a dominant person takes unfair advantage of a dependent person, maybe an abusive caretaker, isolating someone with diminished mental capacity to get them to sign away their assets.
And duress?
Duress is more direct, focusing on coercion. If someone grabs your hand and physically forces you to sign, the contract is completely void. If they use a threat like, sign this or I'll burn down your business, the contract is voidable by the victim.
Okay, so final simple recap to make sure I've got this piece.
Let's do it.
If both sides make a massive mistake about the core reality of the deal, like our pregnant bearing cow, the law lets you out.
Right.
And if someone outright lies to you about what you're signing, hides crucial info when they are your fiduciary, or forces your hand through physical threats or psychological dominance, you have an emergency exit to tear the contract up.
That is a perfect synthesis. You've navigated the invisible architecture brilliantly.
Well, understanding the why behind the rules makes it so much less intimidating. It really does make you look at the world completely differently.
The law is everywhere once you know what to look for.
Yeah.
It's really the operating system of society.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over today. Think about that invisible legal dance we talked about at the very beginning. Every time you buy groceries at the store, every time you click download on a software update, or promise a neighborhood kid $10 to mow your lawn, you are actively participating in this ancient, evolving system of trust and consequence.
It's powerful stuff.
So as you go about your day-to-day, ask yourself, how many unilateral and bilateral contracts have you already entered into today without even realizing it? And more importantly, what happens to your daily life if just one of those invisible threads snaps? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Catch you next time.